If you're a pop culture junkie who loves TV, film, music, comedy, and other really important stuff, then you've come to the right place. Get ready and settle in for Classic Conversations, the best pop culture interviews in the world. That's right, we circled the globe so you don't have to. If you're ready to be the king of the water cooler, then you're ready for Classic Conversations with your host, Jeff Dwoskin.
All right, Kathy, thank you so much for that amazing introduction. You get the show going each and every week, and this week was no exception. Welcome, everybody, to episode 290 of Classic Conversations. As always, I am your host, Jeff Dwoskin. Joining me this week is Marshall, Will, and Holly on a routine expedition. Met the greatest earthquake ever known. That's right. Wesley Eure is here. Will Marshall himself. You loved him on Land of the Lost. You loved him as Michael Horton on Days of Our Lives. Co-creator of Dragon Tales. Grab onto the raft, because together we're plunging 1,000 feet below to the Land of the Lost. And that's coming up in just a few seconds, but not before I apologize for my singing. In these few seconds, John Barber was here last week, creator of Real People. We dived into his documentaries on the assassination of JFK. Lots of amazing stories in that episode. Do not miss it. But before that, we're time traveling. We're going back in time. Portals, time crystals. This episode has it all. You're going to love my conversation with Wesley Eure. That's coming up right now. All right, everyone. I'm excited to introduce you to my next guest. Actor, author, producer, director, educator, dinosaur, and time travel survivor. Mike Horton on Days of Our Lives, and of course, Will Marshall on the cult classic Land of the Lost. Welcome to the show, Wesley Eure.
Hey, how are you? I love it's something, within the last few years, cult classic has been added to classic. It's kind of interesting.
I think it's worthy of it. It's interesting, isn't it? Like just random things from the 70s that nobody let go of. And Land of the Lost is just one of those.
Well, that success, not only to Sid Marty Krofft, but it's to the Star Trek writers. Do you know David Gerrold was our head writer? He wrote, if you're a Trekkie like I am, he wrote Trouble with Tribbles because he created the Tribbles, and Walter Koenig, who played the original Chekhov in Star Trek, he created Enoch, our talking sleepstack. We had DC Fontana, Larry Niven, Spinrad, all these amazing sci-fi writers that were at the beginning of their careers. David brought them on board, and that's why the scripts hold up so well. I mean, of course, the effects are from the 70s. There's no CGI, but it's the scripts, like Shakespeare said, the story's the thing.
Yeah, I mean, it's great. It's great. You dropped the name David Gerrold, The Trouble with Tribble. So the same guy that did that created the Sleestacks, which we all know and love.
And Mike Westmore, who did at the beginning of Star Trek and early seasons, he also did all the monsters, created all the monsters and makeup. And Mike Westmore did all our makeup and monsters, the Sleestack, the Pakuni, Chaka. So we have this really sort of intertwined Star Trek connection. In fact, Sid Krofft said the other day that they were on the lot at Paramount right after Star Trek ended, and they were talking about doing Land of the Lost and stuff. And he asked Gene Roddenberry if he'd be our head writer. And Gene says, I can't. I'm just too busy doing some other things. He said, but I've got this young writer named David Gerrold. That's why Land of the Lost became such a sci-fi show as opposed to like a Swiss Family Robinson with a father and his son, like in the wilderness. David brought that sci-fi element, which is, of course, is the reason it's so successful.
It was interesting because it got me thinking, do you think Land of the Lost would have been treated differently, remembered differently, gone on longer, had it not been thought of as a children's show?
Absolutely. David said at a panel once, he said, I told my writers that we're writing a sci-fi show that airs on Saturday morning. We're not writing a Saturday morning sci-fi show. So write it like an adult show that we just happen to air on Saturday morning. And that's why if you watch the old shows, they talk about time doorways and matrices and multiple universes and all sorts of things. And they never talk down to kids. They never said, all right, this is what that means. They just say, it's a time doorway and it's going to, we got doppelgangers. And kids had to sort of catch up and learn. And I think that's, again, why it was such a big hit back in the day.
When you watch something as a kid, and then I started rewatching a bunch of the episodes. And as you kind of dive in, Land of the Lost had a very deep mythology, right? The crystals, the pylons, just the whole how you guys got there. You can sing that later if you want. No, but like, but it was a pretty rich mythology. So when I learned about the whole Star Trek background, it wasn't a shock to learn that there was some real pedigree behind the concepts that went into Land of the Lost. That's why I started thinking, had it been thought of as not Sid and Marty Krofft, like puffing stuff like that, maybe it would have gotten the same respect as like Star Trek. It's because if you think about Land of the Lost, that's why the remakes all kind of failed, right? They didn't actually extend it and create what you created. They created what the memory of someone who remembers a dinosaur kid show.
Exactly. I remember the scripts would unfold every week for me. I'd get a new script. And I remember because Enoch, which Walter Koenig, Chekhov created, we had the giant green lizard Sleestak, and Enoch was a small sort of orange-brown Sleestak. And you assumed that the green lizards, de-evolved and it became Enoch. It got smarter. Well, it was reversed. It was Enoch's culture that became warlike and savage, and they evolved into the warlike giant green lizards. It was a total reverse. And Enoch kept saying, I've got to go back in time to warn my people. We need to stop this, or we'll become these green monsters. And that mythology, to me, was extraordinary.
Right, but Enoch didn't realize that right away.
No, he didn't. He had to discover it during the show, and he didn't discover it right away. It took some time. And like the Pakuni language that Chaka spoke, it was an actual language. I think it was one of the first. You have the Klingons now, and you have all the different languages for different shows. But they went to a UCLA, a linguist, and they created the Pakuni language. And I think it's based on 8 different languages combined, some synapses and some, different verbiage and things like that. But there's an actual dictionary, the Pakuni dictionary. So the words that were spoken, they meant something. In fact, Phil Paley, who played Chaka, he was only 10 years old. He was the youngest black belt in karate at the time. His teacher was Chuck Norris. In fact, there's a clip of the Tonight Show where Johnny Carson, where he actually goes on with Chuck Norris, and Phil's about like 4'0", a little tiny thing, and he flips Johnny on his back onto the floor, and it's hysterical. And every once in a while they'll post it on YouTube. But Phil, at 10 years old, he wasn't just making up like Sarisa Taka, Wira, Ari. He wasn't making that up. He had to learn it verbatim. And there's a couple of episodes where Chaka talks the whole time. And I just found it extraordinary, his performances, when I look back and see what Phil did.
That was an incredible discovery to find out that I think Victoria Fromkin,
Victoria Fromkin, thank you, yes.
Like just created this whole thing and with the whole goal that they wanted children to learn it. Like people do speak Klingon. I mean, that's a thing. That's what I'm saying. There's so many like little parallels, like you said, with Star Trek.
Kathy Coleman, who played my sister Holly, who's one of my best friends. In fact, she just moved to Palm Springs, so we're now in the same city. We do the Star Trek convention. We've done it for the last 8 or 9 years. And we're the only other show that they allow in, other than Star Trek, because, they're very strict about who gets into a Star Trek convention. But they allow us to come because we are so connected to Star Trek. In fact, Walter Koenig, I see him every year at Star Trek, and he's got his fedora hat on. He's sort of shuffling a bit these days. And he walks by our table with Kathy sitting there, and he goes, "Those damn Sid and Marty Krofft, I should have gotten residuals for Enoch. I should have gotten residuals." So
he created a very important character.
It was a huge character. Marty Krofft at one point said that, I think the Sleestak came in on the giant green ones came in on the 3rd episode, I believe. And the ratings went through the roof. It became NBC's #1 show, not Saturday morning show. Became NBC's #1 show. And to this day, I'll turn on the news, it'll be somebody talk about a tall person. Oh, he looks like a Sleestak. He looks, it's referenced in pop culture all over the place. From Jake Gyllenhaal's Disney's Bubble Boy, where he pretends he's me, and his favorite show is Land of the Lost. He sings the theme song, but there's all sorts of, even Will Ferrell, who did the movie, he had played a character called Marshall Willenholly. His last name was Willenholly instead of Marshall Willenholly, which was the theme song to Land of the Lost. So it has been referenced from Peter Griffin actually auditions with Lois for a community play, and he sings the theme song to Land of the Lost. It's had this life outside of it.
That's how you know something touched on culture in a very deep way. I mean, just Breaking Bad, Bob's Burgers, Robot Chicken, Archer, 30 Rock. I mean, sometimes it's just, he looks like Chaka, or the Sleestak reference. And like you said, sometimes it's like Peter just, and that's worth Googling, by the way, Peter Griffin singing the entire theme song.
Marshall, Bill, and Holly singing. I love it so much.
Malcolm in the Middle. But yeah, Bubble Boy, I think, went all in.
Bubble Boy was amazing with Jake. And they showed some clips of us too from the original show that he'd watch on TV. It was, he was a Bubble Boy. One of my favorite movies, by the way, because unlike the Travolta version, which was very serious about the boy with the disease that couldn't live outside the bubble, Jake Gyllenhaal is a comedy, and it's very funny. But he pretends his favorite show is Land of the Lost, and he pretends he's me, and his girlfriend sometimes dressed like Kathy, like Holly, and it was a real homage, which I loved.
Why were you just credited as Wesley?
Well, the Crofts were really cheap. And the extra 4 letters for EURE, they just couldn't afford. They were so cheap.
You're going the share route.
Listen, it was the worst decision in the planet. Mike was my manager at the time. I'd been recording for Motown. Yes, me, Motown. Thank you very much. There was a boy band that we put together, or Mike Curb from the Mike Curb congregation. And Mike then became the lieutenant governor. And now he's one of the biggest record producers of all times in Nashville. They thought, I don't know, it was the 70s. It was the early 70s. There was all these people. They said, let's just do Wesley. That changed. But I think the second year I added the Eure back in. But yeah.
Well, I'm coming at you from just outside of Detroit. So besides the Motown connection, Bill Lambier, one of our Detroit Piston bad boys, was a sleazestack.
He sure was. They used UCLA basketball players. They were there, and they make a few extra bucks on the side. So they were, all the sleazestack were giant. And, so when these, like Bill, when he put on the costume, it was almost 10 feet tall because they had stilts. They were standing on these big green stilts and the head was pointed. So, and Bill is almost exactly 7 feet tall. And they were huge, and it was made out of wetsuits, the largest wetsuits they could find, and they stuck the green scales and things on them, Mike Westmore. But it was so hot, they could only stay in there for maybe 2 minutes. They'd rip them off of them, and they would be pouring down sweat. But a couple of years ago, Kathy and I were at the Star Trek convention in Vegas, and the head of the league, Bill Nett, was coaching the Aces, the ladies' basketball team in Vegas, and we snuck over there. We left the convention, and we surprised Bill. I hadn't seen him since Land of the Lost, and he'd become the bad boy of, he was the bad boy of basketball. His reputation was a little gnarly. So Kathy and I walk in, and the the women from the team, they all knew we were coming, and they had 8x10s of a sleazestack, and they'd hidden it from Bill Lambier. And as soon as we walked in, they held up the sleazestack head in front of themselves. So they all had sleazestack head. It looked like a, and then we come in, I have a sleazestack head, and he finally gets it. It takes him a moment because we don't look like we used to. And we had the most fun. We did press and all the networks and all that kind of stuff for filming. We gave him some gifts and we chatted a bit. Then he had to go, I gotta go coach. And the head of the league came up to me after. He said, listen, I gotta tell you something. I've known Lambier since he was a college ball player. I have never seen him smile this much.
That's awesome. That's really cool. Yeah, I've been in an elevator with basketball players, and they're ginormous anyway. So when you learn that they're standing on stilts and the head, I mean, they must have how tall are you? I mean, they must have towered over you guys.
But yeah, I'm not the tallest guy. In fact, Kathy by the third year was taller than me, Holly. So, but yeah, they were. We did our Land of the Lost reunion in Milwaukee. First and only one we've ever done, and 3 of the original sleazestacks. Now, Bill Lambier didn't come. I think he wanted $60,000 guarantee to come or something. He's just too rich for his own good. And but some of the other guys did. It's amazing that unlike a lot of casts, we all love each other. We're like family. Kathy's like my sister. As I said, she just moved to town with me. We've got, I think, 10 more Comic-Cons to do this year. Phil Paley, who played Chaka, is like my brother. Spencer Milligan, everybody goes, is he still alive? Yeah, he's still alive. He lives on a beautiful estate in Wisconsin. He'll call me up and he goes, hello, Wesley. This is your Papa speaking. I'm just like, Papa, can you hear me? But, I've always said that the Cross didn't just cast my TV family. They gave me a real life family. And we've all been extraordinarily close since. Kathy just left, right? I mean, she literally just left right now. We had to get a bigger suitcase because these autograph shows, we actually bring our yellow Raft, like in the opening credits, with the oars and the life jackets and the sleazestack heads. and haul it to all across the country. So we had to get a bigger raft, a bigger suitcase, suitcase to put the raft in.
We're going to need a bigger raft.
Yeah, exactly.
Sorry to interrupt, but we have to take a quick break. I do want to thank everyone for their support of the sponsors. When you support the sponsors, you're supporting us here at Classic Conversations, and that's how we keep the lights on. And now back to my conversation with Wesley Eure. All right, so one of these days, I need to find a Comic-Con where you guys are at, because the picture in the raft that I saw on like your Facebook or one of your socials, I mean, it seems that the other stars at the Comic-Cons get off just as much as the people there to see you, to take pictures with you in this raft. I saw Lydia Cornell, Lonnie Anderson, Howard Hessman, Sam Jones, Mindy Cohen. I mean, just to name a few.
John Schneider, yeah. Don Wells. But it's so funny. Now, if you've never seen it, what most celebrities that come to these shows like the Comic-Cons, they bring their little, maybe a banner, and they sit there with photos. Well, Kathy and Phil and I decided a long time ago that if we're going to do this, let's make it special. So we bring up this giant blow-up yellow raft with the oars and the life jackets. And people get in the raft. We put life jackets on them, on ourselves. We have the yellow oars. It's on the floor. If somebody would tell you that taking a picture of a blow-up raft with everybody in it on the floor would come out great, you'd go, oh, that's just nuts. But it does. It's like they get to be in the scene with them. I direct them. We're screaming, everybody going over the waterfall, the hands in the air. And it's wonderful. Some of the celebrities at the conventions, most of them just always want to get into it. But there's a few that go, I don't want to get into that. By the second day, they're coming and go, well, maybe I should get in that raft. I remember Peter Wayne, John Wayne's son. He was at a show, and he was like, no, I don't want to get in the raft. Well, his manager said, get in the raft. Just get in the raft. So that he got in the raft, took a photo. Next day, he comes to us and says, hey, I need to get back in the raft. I need more photos. He said, everybody's loving these photos. I need more. Patrick Wayne, excuse me for that, Patrick Wayne. And so Patrick gets back in the raft, and we do a whole photo shoot with him. But it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of work to do it. 10 years ago, this was a good idea. Now, 10 years later, as I've gotten older, it's like, I need a hydraulic raft that comes up and down. But we really have a good time, and we just want to make it special.
Like I said, no joke, those photos look amazing. And I can feel for you. I imagine every year the judge and jury, that is your back, decides what. Maybe we just...
I find that I'm crouching more in the back of the raft rather than being on my knees these days. I think at Monster Bash, we broke the record of people in the raft. We had all the volunteers. Now the raft was, I can imagine, packed with people, and also people around the raft, some of them actually pretending they're swimming in front of the raft on the floor, not just on the floor of the convention center. I think we had almost 50 people, and there's a video of it up on Facebook. So it's a lot of fun.
As I was rewatching the opening, and you notice things when you're when you rewatch things. The most impressive thing I think in the show isn't the pylons, time traveling, crystals, paradoxes. It's the fact that raft fell 1,000 feet and was fully inflated, not broken when it landed.
And thank goodness it was right side up. Oh my gosh! Well, it's so weird because remember it had a Saturday morning budget, even though it had prime time writers. And we shot, which was unheard of, 2 episodes a week. That's 2.5 days per episode. But we had 2 sound stages. One was jungle, really, with so many plants, and the exterior of our cave, which was up a high bluff, and we had to climb up to the opening of the cave, and a lagoon. And the other sound stage was the interior of our cave, and then the biggest chroma key set, which is green screen now, but it was blue, chroma key blue back then, disappeared. It was the floor of the half of the soundstage, the walls of the soundstage. And we had all this playground to be in, and they would just move us around really quickly. It was quite a heady experience. And it was the first time in television history that the dinosaurs were stop frame motion, and they were on film, and we shot on videotape, and they had to meld the two together instantaneously. So we would see on a monitor the dinosaurs, and then we would be on the green screen, blue screen chroma key, and they would then, film us and shrink us down proportionate to the dinosaurs and try to meld those two images together. Well, it didn't work the first time. The first time we shot the episode of Chaka, it didn't work, and they were panicked. The network and Sid Marty Krofft were panicked. They called in all the Disney engineers and all these people, and within a week, They had solved the problem. And it made history in Hollywood. It was actually the very first time that technology had ever happened. So it was way ahead of its time.
Wow. If you're shooting 2 a week, it must have gone by really fast. There's only like 43 episodes?
Yeah.
I mean, I know it was 3 seasons, so that was probably over
14 basically 14 a season. So within 7 weeks, it was done. It's like, whoa, zip.
Wow.
It was fast. And I was doing Days of Our Lives at the same time. I was playing Mike Horton, which I did for about a decade.
Well, we'll get into that. We'll get into that. Hang on a second. I got plenty on Days.
Oh, excuse me. All right.
I don't
You didn't send me the breakdown. God forbid I should be spontaneous.
No, I got some more Land of the Lost.
Oh, okay. We're celebrating, next year is our 50th anniversary of Land of the Lost. 50 years. And its fan base continues to grow. It's wild. It's, you do something 50 years ago and you say the lines, you do the stuff, you move on. You think, well, that's, that was wonderful. We had a great time. The show was a hit for a while. But then to go to conventions now and see little kids coming up to us singing the theme song and talking about the characters. A bunch of little girls will come dressed like Holly with blonde hair, pigtails, and a checkered red and white checkered shirt, pretending. It's pretty astonishing, to be honest. It's a great homage to Sid and Marty Krofft, who created this amazing thing, which was their most successful show, by the way, of all their shows. It ran the longest. And it's just weird that after 50 years that there's still a buzz about the show.
Oh, it's incredible. I think I know Huff and Puff HR Huff and Puff got a shout out on Ted Lasso, but I think you're right. In terms of pop culture longevity, Land of the Lost has got hands down with most of any of those children's shows from that time frame.
HR Puff and stuff was, I think, their first big one. And I think to their heart, that's the one that kicked them off. So they have a great affinity and affection for that show because it got their foot out of the live puppet shows that they were doing at the World's Fair and different things like that got them to become household names.
Yeah, it was definitely a unique style that they had.
And the famous lawsuit with McDonald's back in the day, McDonald's asked them to create like the hamburger or one of the characters, and the Crofts did, and they didn't go with it. But it suddenly, when they created it, it suddenly looked like puppet stuff.
Maybe Mayor McCheese.
Yeah, well, and the Crofts sued and they won. It was the biggest sell. It was like $1 million with McDonald's at the time because they had basically just taken puppet stuff and made a hamburger head out of it or whatever it was. I don't remember.
So you mentioned the tight family that you created when you joined Land of the Lost. How did you guys feel when Spencer left at the end of season 2? Uncle Jack, Ron Harper from Planet of the Apes. Oh, that was cool.
Yeah.
Joined. I mean, you got to sing a new song. That's one thing.
I got to sing. Well, it was sad. I mean, we had a hit show and it was very sad. Spencer in the last few years has profoundly apologized for leaving. He left because we got nothing for it, as most people did back in those days, anything for merchandising and stuff like that. And they were you'd go to a grocery store and there'd be a board game or a Viewmaster. There were so many games and puzzles and things with Land of the Lost in our picture on it. And he asked for a piece of that for all of us. And he left. So it was sad. And not to talk about Days of Our Lives, but Ron Harper's wife was on Days of Our Lives at the same time. So I was in Days of Our Lives with his wife, and then come in the afternoon, and I was with Ron Harper. So on Land of the Lost.
Dr. Mike Horton to I wanted to give Days of Our Lives its due because it was quite a role. That's why I didn't want to skirt it and then go back to Land of the Lost and bury Days of Our Lives. That's a big piece of the story. So did you have you guys, I know you mentioned you're like sisters with Kathy. Were you guys close this whole time, or did it take time before all of you kind of?
Well, it took time because when I did Land of the Lost, I was older. I was actually in like 22. I was playing 16, but I was 22. So I was off to do other shows. So, and Kathy was a little girl. I mean, when the show ended, she was 14. So our lives didn't parallel very much after that. And it was only in these conventions years and years ago. Kathy was doing them, and I ended up doing one in I don't remember where it was, but really reconnected. And it was just like brother and sister. And it's kind of hard to explain how close the two of us are. Well, to let you know, we do the Star Trek convention at the Rio Hotel every year, and we share a room. We get two queen beds, and that's how close we are because we just have fun together.
It's great. I think it's super cool. It's like, because so many people never talk to the people they work with again. It's like they do a job, you move on.
Well, I know a bunch of shows. Not only do they not talk to each other again, they won't do a show together. They won't sit next to each other. If one's doing a show, they won't do, it's so silly, Everybody should be so grateful for that moment in time when, when the magic happened and people remember you. And I always get very upset or disappointed with people when they pretend that they don't want to talk about that. I don't want to talk about the past. I don't want to talk about that show. Oh, no, that was something else in my life. And I'm thinking, gratitude is a huge part of life for me. And it annoys me when I will do these shows and people go, okay, you can talk about everything except don't talk about that. I don't want to talk about that. It's like, well, then why are you here?
I totally understand what you're saying. You were blessed with a lot, and not everyone who acts is given the opportunity to play something or someone that everyone remembers forever.
I'm always reminded that I happened to walk through the right door that day. I didn't have the sniffles. The car didn't break down. That somebody else could have walked through that door that same day and had that part. Anybody like a William Shatner or somebody, had he not been able to make that appointment, whatever those appointment was that day, somebody else would have been there. And that's the case for every job. I mean, even every job in the world, even being a banker or whatever, there's always somebody else could have walked through that door that day. There could have been a different candidate for that job. So the fact that I did walk through the door that day, I did get the job. I want to celebrate that was such a great game changer for my life, not only for my professional life, but for my extended family life.
I love that you embrace it. I need a picture with you in the raft.
You're so amazing.
Oh, and then I heard a rumor. Tell me if this rumor is true. You were on Days of Our Lives?
No. That was a rumor. And I don't want to talk about that, okay? Before this started, I said, let's not talk about that. This is ridiculous.
Michael Horton. It's an interesting character for Days of Our Lives. It's the most recast character in Days of Our Lives history.
Wow.
You're the most renowned person to play it and the longest. But you were the 10th person to play it, and there's been 18. It's crazy. The world of soaps.
I was the first adult. It was a little kid before I played it.
Right. You were like, they time jumped. And I think I read that like right now he's 50 or something.
Oh my gosh. But that was a wonderful job. I loved it. And it was the cushiest job on the planet. It was, a lot of lines to learn, but it certainly gave me a platform to do other things. And I sure am grateful to it. And I'm still very close friends with some of the cast. Bill Hayes, who just retired after he's 97 years old. He did his last show, and Bill and Susan Hayes. And I went to their house. I stopped by last Easter, and I stopped by their house. And he said, Bill goes, well, as long as I can still remember my lines, I'm still going to do this. And I understand that he filmed his last show. So
wow,
it's amazing.
It's amazing the careers people have when they go long term in soaps. Like you see so many people that they're just there forever.
Deidre Hall now is the grandam of Days of Our Lives. And Deidre,
a lecture woman. Go ahead.
Thank you. I was filming, I'm going to go back to Land of the Lost again. I was filming Land of the Lost, and Deidre comes up to me, says, hey, I have an audition for Days of Our Lives. I know you're on Days of Our Lives. And I said, Deidre, I know what they're looking for. I had lunch with the directors and producers, and I know exactly what they're looking for and what they judge a performance by, an audition. So she had the sides. We worked on the sides a little bit. She went and auditioned. Not that I helped her or got her the job at all, because she's so talented. But she got the job. And to this day, she's still on the show, and I guess the most popular of the characters. And when I was on the show, then she became my therapist. She's a shrink on the show. But that's another a crossover of things that happen walking through the right door.
And knowing the right people. She's like, oh, I know Will Marshall. He can hook me up on it. Yeah, Will Marshall knows Mike Horton. So I was looking, I looked at the, admittedly, I didn't watch Days of Our Lives back then, but some of the stuff, is it Mickey? Is it Mickey or?
Mickey and Maggie. And
okay,
yes.
Mickey. So you caused Mickey to have a heart attack, then you felt guilty.
Let's see. When I first got on the show, a wagon fell on my chest and crushed it. Then I found out that my father wasn't my father. He was really my uncle, because my uncle had raped my mother years ago at the hospital. Then I had an affair with Trish. The mafia was after me. Then I couldn't get it up. I thought I was having sexual problems. Then my father's ex-lover, Linda, proved that I was okay. Then I met a girl. She got leukemia. We got married. She died. I mean, that was the first week of the show.
Right. You went into debt. You then had to work for the mob. So when I'm reading all this, the first thing that goes to my head is like, and it's like, and then people think Land of the Lost is the improbable one. It's like,
oh my gosh. Well, what was so funny was There were both NBC shows. So NBC let me do both shows. And for those 3 years I was on Land of the Lost, I would go in the mornings at NBC Burbank and shoot all of my Days of Our Lives scenes. So the cast hated me because I got to walk in, block my scenes, shoot them, and get the heck out of there. Well, they had to wait around and then shoot their scenes. So in the morning, I'm crying that my girlfriend is leaving me and I'm having all these problems and stuff. And in the afternoon, I'm over at Goldwyn Studios going, "Run, Holly, run! There's a dinosaur." So it was the best time. I got to tell you, I was very happy and grateful.
Plus, you're a teen idol this whole time too, right? Aren't you like on Tiger Beat, all that kind of stuff?
Tiger Beat, yeah, 16 magazine.
Do you remember any of the headlines?
Yeah, Win a Date with Wesley. I remember that. I remember I had to go to a restaurant with this girl once. All chaperoned at the time because everybody's underage. But I don't remember all of them now.
I'm sure there's a million of them.
There was a special show, Teens from the 70s, Teen Idols from the 70s, with Chris Atkins from Blue Lagoon, Greg Evigan, DJ the Bear, Christy McNichol, and Jimmy McNichol, and myself. We were at the Nixon Library in March for a special event of the five of us, reminiscing with a bunch of people. But back in the day, the town was smaller back then, and we all knew each other, most of us. And we would go to the same parties, like Lawfer Publications would have a party which were publishing like 16 or Tiger Beat or whatever. And we got to know each other. I mean, I remember one day I'd rented a house. I finally made some money because I didn't even have a car, but I rented a house in Beverly Hills. And, Sean Cassidy and Leif Garrett come over to go swimming. And this is before Sean even had a TV series. His brother David Cassidy was the big star at the time. But Sean came swimming and Leif came over swimming, that kind of things was going on. Greg Evigan, I hadn't seen Greg, decades. And I go, "Greg, do you remember you came over to my house? You said, if you teach me to act, I'll teach you how to play the piano." And so, those were kind of the relationships we all had back in those days.
That's amazing. Oh, and then speaking of David Cassidy, you were going to replace him maybe on the Partridge Family. Like they had
yes. David had decided to leave the show. They were really upset, ABC, because the show was so popular that they decided they were going to cast a character which was going to be the next door neighbor, his best friend, with a single dad. So I went to Bobby Sherman's house, another teen idol. So I went to Bobby's house. He had a recording studio. I recorded a song for ABC. I went and performed it for ABC. They filmed it. I got the job, and David heard I was going to do it. He goes, "I think I'll stay." So he didn't leave the show. They didn't let me go. They didn't write that character in. So they 86 that and just continued with David.
Oh, man.
I know. I could have been a Partridge Family.
Oh, man. That's funny. Oh, and then so during this time, too, you're like hot into the game shows. And one of the things I read was you got to hang out with Lucille Ball and teach her how to play. And then you hooked your mom up. I want to hear all about it. I need to hear about this.
I mean, I auditioned for Password and I got it. And I remember the first day that I drove into NBC, it was on a Saturday. And I said, "Please don't let it be Elizabeth Montgomery. Please don't make me play against Elizabeth Montgomery." Because I would watch Password as a fan. And she was the hardest player. She was the best player. So I pull in and they'd given me Johnny Carson's parking spot because it's a Saturday. They put my name over Johnny's name. I look to the right and it says Elizabeth Montgomery. Geez. I ended up playing a lot on Password. Elizabeth and I ended up being pitted against each other many times. In fact, at Buzzer TV, I think I was on yesterday with Elaine Joyce. But with Betty White, I played with Betty White and Vicki Lawrence, Susan Richardson, Deborah Lee Scott. I mean, everybody. And I became kind of a semi-regular on the show. Alan Ludden had said that Elizabeth was the best female player, and he said in print that I was the best male player. But so one day I'm at NBC Burbank. It's in the morning. We're about to shoot our 5 shows because with game shows, you shoot all 5, a whole week's worth in one day, each half-hour show. We bring 5 different outfits, so it looks like it's a different day. 3 in the morning, lunch, then a new audience, 2 in the afternoon. So the producers come in my room and said, "Hey, Wesley, listen, would you mind teaching Lucille Ball how to play Password?" Now, she'd played Password in the black and white days, but there was a thing called Alphabetics, which was a new in-game. And I said, "Lucille Ball, are you crazy?" "Of course, I'll teach her." So they left the room, and I called my mother. And my mother lived in Burbank, down the street from NBC. And I called my mother and go, "Mom, what are you doing today?" She goes, "Nothing." I go, "Want to spend the day with Lucille Ball?" And she was like 10 minutes. She was through the garden gate. She was in my dressing room. And Lucy came in because I got to call her Lucy. Thank you very much. And I was like so happy. So Lucy stayed the whole day in my dressing room with my mom, and I would go film the half hour. She'd watch it on the monitor. I'd come back. I'm changing clothes in front of her, taking everything, putting everything on. And we're talking about the clues and how it plays and all that stuff. Because the alphabetics game was pretty hard. You had 60 seconds to get 10 words correct from A to whatever, J or however, where they started in the alphabet. They started the letter in, it's 10 letters down. And it was for like $5,000 or $10,000, which was a heck of a lot of money back then. So we spent the day and had lunch with her. And I had known little Lucy, Lucie Arnaz, for years in the past. In fact, Lucie Arnaz lives here in Palm Springs now with Larry Luckenbill, her husband. And in fact, I saw little Lucy, a few years ago, ran into her, I think I don't remember where, getting mail or something. And I said, I taught your mother how to play password. She goes, I know, you did a good job. Because Lucille Ball was a backgammon player. She loved games. And she was notorious for backgammon. It was just one of those moments in time you go, how the heck did this happen? I'm from Hattiesburg, Mississippi. I was born in Louisiana. And here I am with Lucille Ball teaching her to, it was trippy.
I love that. And it was just, to me, like, Lucille Ball is so amazing. I mean, it's just like to be able to even just spend a day with her. Wow. Sorry to interrupt. Have to take another quick break. And we're back with an amazing story about Redd Foxx. Okay, and then there was this one line that I read and you wrote, and then there was that day I shared my dressing room with Redd Foxx. That was it.
Oh my God, Redd Foxx. I loved him. Oh my gosh. I'm laughing because if you could see what's in my head, the picture in my head, you'd be laughing. So Redd comes, he's going to share a dressing room with me, and he needs the dressing room. I don't know if he's doing a talk show or a special. I'm there for password. They have a shared dressing room, and he takes his shirt off. Oh, Redd, forgive me. And tattooed on his nipples was a face. The nipple was a nose, and above it were two eyes and a mouth below the nipple. Both of them. They looked like prison tattoos. They were very rough. He had his shirt off, and he had his nipples sing to me. He was grabbing them with his hands and juggling them up and down and making them sing to me. I have never in my life laughed so hard. That was Redd Foxx doing that with me. I was like, really? Oh my God, he was so much fun.
I'm trying to picture that tattoo, and I'm not trying to picture it at the same time.
I know, I know. And you have to, it was the crudest thing. It wasn't like high end with beautiful eyes and lovely lips. No, it's just like, stick figure. But it was funny. The man was, you get to meet, some people are just so genuinely funny that everything they do. It's like going out to dinner with Sally Struthers. Sally Struthers is one of the funniest people ever. She brings a fork that extends out. It's a little fork, but it's like a car antenna that you can pull out and make it longer. And you'll be sitting across the table and she'll pull out that fork, extend it, reach across the table and grab a French fry off your plate. I mean, you just are howling, laughing. So it's those moments. And I think the greatest gift with the success that I've had in my life is the access I've had to be able to hang out with some people that I am just awed of. And I've counted myself extraordinarily lucky. Even when we do these shows, I mean, we'll be sitting next to Lou Ferrigno or Gil Gerard or Lou Gossett Jr. I mean, and spend the whole weekend. It's like, to me, I'm like a kid in a candy store and I can't believe it.
Who of those people, I want to hear this version of the story, like you're like, oh my God, that's Lou Ferrigno. Oh my God, that's Lou Gossett Jr. Who of those people went, oh my God, that's Wesley Eure? Like, oh my God, I want, where they just get so excited that they're like, oh my God, I watched that Land of the Lost. Who got Giddy in front of you?
I don't think, truth is, I can't remember anybody. I think everybody sort of holds that back a bit. I've had some people come, when we got to know each other, goes, oh my, by the way, I was a big fan of yours too. They're kind of like make it like it was a secret they were keeping. But my funniest was we were at Dragon Con, which is a huge event in Atlanta. It's a really big name event. And we're sitting there, it's 5 days. And I was sitting next, Lou Ferrigno was right next to us, Kathy and I. And the first day, he nothing to do with us. He didn't know who the heck we were, didn't care, signing autographs. By the second day, because we had lines of people, it was like, who the hell are you? People were all, everybody wanted to get with the autographs, stuff like that. By the third day, it was like, so, hey, how are you today? We became our best friends. Of course, I think Kathy had a beautiful girl there with him, and then one of her best friends was there. And so that made it happy for him. It's amazing to watch the arc of somebody's like, to best friend time. But it's fun. Like I know we're gonna be next to Marta Kristen coming up. She was Judy on my favorite show as a kid, Lost in Space. Now when I was a kid, I wanted to be Billy Mooney. I wanted to be in Lost in Space. And now to be able to call her a friend and sit, and laugh and giggle and share not only funny stories, but intimate stories, which is kind of extraordinary.
I've never talked to her. I've talked to Cartwright, Angela Cartwright. I've talked to Angela Cartwright. But Marta's from Michigan. Her adoptive parents, I think she grew up in Michigan.
Nice. Well, Marta is just extraordinary. And Beautiful is amazing. Pat Priest, who's I think in her late 80s, she played in The Munsters. She was Marilyn, the beautiful one that they thought was ugly.
Right.
You would think, Kathy and I were signing autographs. She was sitting next to us, and we'd been laughing all day about some fans come up, and some fans are just over the top, and some people are rude, some people are just, they grab your pictures and stuff, and it's weird. So she watched we saw her. We were at a casino. She was watching us, and as soon as the last person left that was getting an autograph, she comes running over, and she pretends she's the worst fan ever. Goes, "Oh my God, I used to watch you all the time." And she started laying her body all over our photographs and taking her arms and swiping them and knocking all of our photos onto the ground. Says, "Oh my God, you guys were my favorite. Oh my God, how much are these autographs?" It was, I have a kid. I'm laughing. We couldn't stop laughing. I mean, this is this is Pat Priest, for goodness sake.
I know. What do you do when you're like sitting around, all you icons? You go out to dinner later when Sally Struthers is stealing your French fries. I got to get one of those forks, by the way.
That's hysterical.
Yeah. Oh man, it sounds like it's a fun world. Just after I guess everyone leaves and just hanging out with all the other celebs, it must be a blast. It sounds like a blast.
First of all, we have a good time. We go to have a good time. And when it stops becoming a good time, then I'll stop going. And that's, again, why we bring the Raft. If people are going to spend money and make that effort to be at a show, let's do something more than just a hello, how are you? Stand by me, take a picture. Let's make it memorable. Let's make it an experience. Felix Silla, who played Cousin It and Tweaky on Buck Rogers and stuff, he passed away about 2 years ago. And he must have been, 3 foot tall. He was in 80s. He and I don't know why, but we became pals, big pals. And we were at a show in Dallas, and we were all sitting along back walls. He was way away from me. There was a curtain all the way behind us. And I suddenly saw this curtain come bumping. So he was behind the curtain coming towards me, hiding, pretending he was hiding, trying to scare me and stuff. And this Felix Silla, in his 80s, coming over there to try to scare me. Well, there was nobody at the convention. It was one of the shows where nobody showed up for this one day. So Felix and I got in the middle of the convention floor and started doing midget wrestling. And he threw me down on the floor. And he was jumping. I mean, he's in his 80s punching me and stuff. And people are laughing their tushes off. But it's those moments, that are just, I don't know, they're just extraordinary.
Sounds amazing. That's 1 million views on TikTok right there, Wesley. Oh, I did want to I thought it was so cool. Chomps, you worked with, that was Valerie Bertinelli's first movie, your first big starring role. That was kind of like a cable classic.
Yeah, it was with Red Buttons and Conrad Bay and Jim Backus. It was amazing cast. And Valerie got to give her first big screen kiss, before Eddie Van Halen. Thank you very much. Because we used to hang out together, that group of, Mackenzie Phillips and Linda Blair. That was just kind of what we did back in the day.
Chomps, the robot dog in that movie, cost $250,000 to build. How much did it cost to make Grumpy the dinosaur?
Boy,
I don't really expect you to know.
Sid and Marty Krofft, $1.37. So
that's a level up. Oh, and then you created Dragon Tales. You're just like a man of many layers. This is that's a great.
Dragon Tales for PBS. It ran 9 years. Still, I think the movie just came out. A new movie just came out in March. But I was one of the creators. There were 3 of us. And I'd written a book called The Red Wings of Christmas that Disney had bought for an animated feature. And I wrote the screenplay and the songs for Disney. And it's been sitting on a shelf, thank you. And I had been producing and segment writing Totally Hidden Video for Fox, the hidden camera show. And the executive producer, Jim Conway, moved over to Sony Pictures and found some dragon drawings. And the government was offering $16 million for a new kids programming. And Sesame Street wanted it, and the Muppets wanted it. And Ron Rudiger, this illustrator, an educator at the Sawdust Art Festival in Laguna Beach, had these amazing dragon drawings. They didn't look like what they ended up on the show. They were very sophisticated, funny. Anyway, so Jim asked me, his son's favorite book was The Red Wings of Christmas. And said, Wesley, you got to come in. And we're trying to put this thing together. And I got it put together in 3 days. And then I wrote a companion piece, which was required by the grant at another show called Show and Tell Me. And it sold within a week, and we beat everybody out. So it's Children's Television Workshop ended up producing it with Sony Pictures.
Pretty impressive to beat the Muppets and Sesame Street.
It was pretty impressive. And what's so much fun is that I get it because the kids now, so that was they're in their 20s and stuff. They used to watch it faithfully. We were at a show. I was hosting a Golden Girls celebration show this past weekend in the San Francisco area with all the executive producers and the writers and some of the ancillary characters that are, of course, still around us because the girls are gone now. And we were at an event and they were introducing, here's the writer for, Golden Girls. Everybody's applaud or stuff. Here's these actors. They were on this show. Applause. Wesley Land of the Lost. Applause. And he also is a co-creator of Dragon Tales. The place erupted in like screams. Everybody's looking at me like, what the heck? It was because that to hit that sweet spot of that audience was a younger audience. It was like, what the heck is that all about?
That's like a hidden gem of trivia for Wesley Eure. I mean, like when I found that out, I was like, damn.
Damn. Do you know what I love? What I love about the conventions, one of the best things about them is they're a safe spot that kids on the spectrum, kids with disabilities, adults with disabilities, anybody, geeks of all nature, it's a place to go play and absolutely let your child inside you just let loose. And parents, I know a lot of parents with kids that have needs, special needs. And with Dragon Tales, especially, I have so many kids will come up to my table, and when they find out, when they see I'm did Dragon Tales, they get crazy, and they can sing every song from Dragon Tales. We sing along, and some of them I'm real friends. I call them on their birthdays and things like that. I keep a record of who they are and what their life is. To see that joy, that how that's connected, that opens some window in their heart. It's an extraordinary moment to watch that face, the exuberance on faces of kids when they connect with you on that level. One guy, I've asked his mom if I can mention him, and she said yes, because I would never, but his name is Zach, and he's become a pal. And I call him on his birthday. We go see him when I'm in Texas. I'll go see him and his mom. He has become, he can tell you every story plot. He can sing every song that was there. And every time I call him when he's in the hospital or whatever, we always are on speakerphone with the nurses and stuff, and we sing the theme song to Dragon Tales together. And it's just, they're just magical moments.
Really is magic. You are awesome. That is really cool. That is really cool. That's really touching. Oh, wow. Those are great. I mean, that makes it all worth it, right? I mean, like that's kind of puts it in a great bow on.
One of the things that was a surprise to me is with Land of the Lost. So when, you're an actor, you say the lines and you move on, like we said before. But the people that come up to our table, and it has changed their life. And you had no idea. We had one guy, a man, he's in his 50s, obviously, at the time. But he was crying, and he said, I got to tell you something. I know it's going to sound hokey, but between the second and third season, when you lost your dad and your uncle came in, he said, my father was leaving us, and I was devastated. I didn't think my family was going to survive. I didn't know how I was going to handle my father leaving me. Oh, excuse me. And he said, when I saw that the family continued and survived, even though your dad left and your uncle came in, it gave me the hope and the strength to get through that rough period of time. We had a young girl from Compton come in. She said, when I was a little girl, we couldn't play outside. It was too dangerous. And it was a rough neighborhood. And she said, we'd play Land of the Lost all weekend. We'd watch it in the morning. We'd build caves with blankets and tables and play dinosaurs and sleigh stack and stuff like that. And she said, you don't know how this changed my life. He said, it gave us this world on the weekends for us to be. One blind couple came, they married. They had met at blind school, and they both had their vision as children. What they had in common was Land of the Lost before they lost their vision. So they came up to our table, and Kathy's there. Kathy still has long blonde hair, and we had a sleigh stack head. And they said, we told them what was there. And both of them said, Kathy, can we touch you? And they reached over and they felt her hair and felt her face. And they remembered the little Holly that they had seen, who's now obviously mature, but still had the long hair and stuff. But we have moments like that. One guy came up to us on a happier note, not a different note. And he and his brother, he says, we thought you spoke Farsi. We go, what? Yeah, we used to watch it when we were, I think it was Iraq. Years ago, they were raised there, obviously came to the States, and they got interested in archaeology and science. And they were two heads of the Jet Propulsion Lab. They were two of the major guys. They said, hey, will you guys want to come to JPL? We'll give you a private tour. Not only did we get a private tour of JPL with these guys, they let us go into the private room with the one guy there must have been like 40 computer banks and one guy. And he was the guy programming and driving the Mars rover with the joystick and programming it every day. He had driven every Mars rover up to that date. And he goes, "Hey, do you want to play with the joystick and drive the rover?" We go, "Are you crazy? Of course we want to drive the rover." So we go, and there we are, with this guy alone with the joystick. And of course, now it didn't move the rover on Mars because they program it. They go through the program and then they send it to Mars when they're happy with the program for the next day. It takes eight hours to broadcast back to Mars. But the fact, and he erased everything we did when we left. But the fact that that door opened because of Land of the Lost. It's amazing. Just it's unexpected, and who would have thought?
It's incredible. I love hearing those stories and how the show resonated with people. It must make you feel so good, so good. Oh man, that's awesome.
It does. It's a surprise every time. It's just like, that's one of the reasons we love doing what we do when we go do these shows. We get such rewarded for it on an emotional and spiritual basis. We leave shows on such a high because of the friendships we made. And some of the people that we've met have become dear friends of ours. They're part of our lives now. They're not just fans. They're actually family now to us. It's an interesting thing. Again, who would have thought?
Who would have thought? Here we are, 50 years later. Amazing.
Oh. It's crazy.
I appreciate you hanging out with me. Thank you so much. This is so fun. I love all these stories. Can't thank you enough. Wow.
Jeff, thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
All right. How amazing was Wesley Eure? I really need to find him at a Comic-Con and get a picture in that raft. It's on my bucket list now for sure. I got to say, it's always such a crazy joy to talk to someone that I grew up watching on Saturday morning. Oh my goodness. So fun. It was great laughing with Wesley and so many great stories. I hope you enjoyed our visit to Land of the Lost and Days of Our Lives. And how about that Dragon Tales? That caught you off guard, didn't it? Yeah, I bet you didn't know that. Amazing, amazing stories. Amazing career, amazing life. Well, with the interview over, that can only mean one thing. I know, the episode's over. I can't believe it. Just flew by. One more huge thank you to my guest, Wesley Eure, and another huge thank you to all of you for coming back week after week. Means the world to me, and I'll see you next time.
Thanks so much for listening to this episode of Classic Conversations. If you like what you heard, don't be shy and give us a follow on your favorite podcast app. Also, why not go ahead and tell all your friends about the show? You strike us as the kind of person that people listen to. Thanks in advance for spreading the word, and we'll catch you next time on Classic Conversations.